Welcome back to the amazing casino, Ocean Casino Resort here at the Gallery Bar, Book and Games. Mark Farzetta along with Eagles Hall of Famer Seth Joyner and veteran Eagles reporter and host of Sports Take right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, our good friend Derek Gunn. And standing by, another good friend of the show, of course, from Birds 365, John McMullen joining us. John, how are you? What is it looking like injury-wise today on that Eagles offensive line?
Well, I mean, everybody's going to try to give it a go. I don't think the question is who's going to start. It's who's going to finish. So we kind of saw it last week a little bit in Arizona. Landon Dickerson had to leave. Really, Sua Opeta played more, was able to come back in the game and sort of back and forth. Jason Kelsey left for 2 snaps. Jordan Mailata is going to try to give it a go, play with a harness, but you know, Andre Dillard is available. So, you know, they have guys who are ready to play, have been cleared to play, but the question is, how healthy are they going to be? Because that's the strength of the Dallas Cowboys. DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons, especially Dante Fowler. That pass rush has been the best in football. And you need your guys not only to play, but play at a typical level, and I don't know if that can be the case if guys are so banged up.
Hey, John, we've spent a good portion of this season talking about how the Eagles' offense is the most efficient when it has a balanced attack. They waited until they went to the running game late in the game against Arizona last week. How imperative is it for the Eagles to try to establish their running attack early in this game against the Dallas defense that is susceptible to the run?
Well, I think it's very important, Derek, because, you know, we're talking about Micah Parsons, who might be the defensive player of the year. Obviously, the season isn't over, but through the first number of weeks, he's been the most dominant defensive player. He's also undersized as an edge player. So if you have the ability to run the football, we know the Eagles do, would you rather run it right at him? Or would you like to, you know, play pass protection, let him wreck the game from that standpoint? So I think the running game is going to be very, very important for the Eagles in this game.
You know, John, it's interesting because I want to stay right here on the running game. You know, I've been thinking about this throughout the week, just trying to figure out, you know, because Micah Parsons is the linchpin for how this offense goes. There are times when they play him off the ball. And obviously, I think that they're anticipating, they're tipping their hand, they're anticipating a run, you know, actually when he's off the ball. I think early in the game, that's an opportunity to say, okay, when we got him off the ball, let's put the ball up in the air. Okay, even though he's good against the pass as well, that's one less bona fide pass rusher that you actually have. So let's try to make some hay through the air when we got him off the ball. And to your point, when he's got his hand down on the ground and he's standing on the end, let's figure out, you know, how we can block down and send 2 pullers his way, you know, and figure out how, you know, we can tire him out early in the game by running the ball right at him. Any thoughts about that?
Well, you know, I think Dan Quinn is one of the better defensive coordinators in this league. I think he's a very smart coordinator. I think you can talk about him as a head coach and have some, you know, criticisms there, but I think he's done a tremendous job with this group as a whole. They have big-time playmakers, right, Seth? So they not only have guys who are good players, they have guys who make splash plays, and it starts with Micah Parsons. On the back end, it's Trayvon Diggs. The Eagles have to be very, very careful with Trayvon Diggs. He's intercepted him 4 times already. This is only his 3rd year in the NFL. He got a 59-yard pick 6 on them last year in September in Dallas. He is a guy who will go get the football. So when you have 2 players like that, you have one in the front, you have one in the back 7. I think Dan Quinn understands, you know, maybe they can't keep up with the Eagles from an offensive perspective with Cooper Rush playing quarterback. So you almost want to take a chance or 2 defensively, try to create something from that standpoint. All of a sudden, if you get a +6 on the defensive side of the ball, you really got a chance to win this football game. So I think I bring up Dan Quinn for that fact. I think he understands situations. He understands what he's up against in Philadelphia, and he'll try to do something to create a mistake from Jalen Hurts.
John, I know we can talk a lot about the difference in the roster from the Eagles last year in Dallas during that game where they got drubbed the first time around. They only ran the ball twice with a running back in that first half. I know we could talk about a different roster that went into Dallas that time around than the roster that's going to be hosting the Cowboys this time around. But Jalen Hurts specifically seems like a much different quarterback than what we saw play in Dallas a year ago. How much do you think Dallas is playing into that, and what do you think they're expecting from Jalen Hurts this time around?
Well, you heard DeMarcus Lawrence all week, people trying to bring up the bulletin board material. Nick Sirianni kind of laughed that off. But, the Cowboys think they have a very good defense. And, what DeMarcus essentially said, all right, he's improved. Let's see what he does against us. I'm interested as well, to be honest, because this is the most difficult defense the Eagles have faced to date. I don't think there's any question about that. I do think there's a little bit of a luxury mark in the fact that I think they can make a mistake or two and make up for it, because I don't think Dallas is very explosive on the offensive side of the ball because of Cooper Rush playing quarterback, more of a game manager. So if I'm the Eagles, I want to get the lead. I want to force Dallas to try to throw the ball early. I don't think they're capable of doing it consistently. Then all of a sudden, the snowball can start rolling down the hill. But from the Eagles, the offensive perspective, I think they just got to be slow and steady. If it doesn't work, if you start slowly, you start wearing on them, you're playing a good defense. But there's a very, very small margin of error for Dallas because they can't win a shootout. They can't really play it from behind. So you should prey on that if you're Nick Sirianni.
All right, John, let's talk about this Eagles defense. When you look at the Dallas offensive tackles, on one side you have Tyler Smith, a rookie who's developing, and at this stage is better than a lot of people thought, but he's still in the learning stages. On the other side, they have a Richard Steele who's okay. I said earlier in this show that Cooper Rush is a stationary target. He's not going to scramble around a lot like a lot of quarterbacks in the National Football League right now. For me, that means the likes of Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham should be able to feast tonight on this guy.
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, if you look at it last week, you're right. It's a stationary target. As far as, Kyler Murray, they went in with a different approach, a more disciplined approach. Now you can kind of pin your ears back a little bit. I do think when we talk about Dallas years past, they had the great offensive line when Tyron Smith was healthy, Travis Frederick was still there, Zach Martin is there. Zach's still there. Zach's playing at an all-pro level. Terrence Steele, you mentioned, is playing better than people had expected. Tyler Smith is playing better than people expected. Jason Peters is going to play in this game as well. Maybe a little bit better offensive line because of Zach Martin than people realized. So I think that the Cowboys will do what they have been doing under Cooper Rush to date, and they will be very smart. They will take care of the football, but there's not going to be a lot of splash plays. So, can the Eagles create some kind of turnover? If they do, it's probably going to be more in the strip category of, say, Tony Pollard, perhaps, somebody of that nature. Ezekiel Elliott occasionally, but he takes good care of the football. Both of these teams, the Eagles are +1 in turnover ratio. They're number 1, The Cowboys are number 2. So both of these teams have taken care of the football.
John, obviously, I'm not as concerned about the Cowboys offense as I am their defense. No. I feel like, the Eagles have the leg up in the Cowboys offense versus the Eagles defense. Interesting comment, you brought up that DeMarcus Lawrence said, okay, he's improved. Let's see how he does against us, okay? I think the mistake that he's making is that he's saying, how does Jalen Hurts going to do against him? And what he doesn't realize is that if his offensive line is healthy, he's got the best offensive line in football, okay? And he's got some weapons now. It's not like, this isn't the same offense that he faced last year. You got 2 or 3 running backs. You got, better tight end play. You got 3 wide receivers. A.J. Brown is a difference maker. So, a lot of times these guys shoot their mouths off and they talk about things that really don't make a whole lot of sense because he's not looking at the total picture. Jalen Hurts will not win a football game ever by himself because he can't snap it to himself. He can't block for himself. He can't rear back and throw it 40 yards down the field and run down there and catch it by himself. He's got some weapons around him that can change the entire narrative based upon what you saw last year and what you're going to see this year. 2 different football teams.
No, I agree with that. Look, I've said from the start, I think A.J. Brown has been the big domino piece where everything else falls into place because he's on the field. I really believe that. I think he's had that kind of impact on this offense. And all of a sudden, Devontae Smith, who's, maybe not ready to be a true wide receiver one in the NFL, well, he's one of the best wide receiver 2s. He's one of the best. Dallas Goedert, one of the best tight ends. You mentioned the running game. I think a lot of that has to do with Jalen Hurts. But I'll say this, Seth. The Eagles have the best offensive line in the NFL. No question about it in my mind. What I can tell you is they're not healthy. Jordan Mailata's not healthy. Landon Dickerson's not healthy. Jason Kelsey's not healthy. Isaac Seumalo's not healthy. They're playing through some things. So that's my one concern. One of the 5, and that's Lane Johnson, who has, historically has ankle issues due to the reconstructive surgery. So they're banged up on the offensive line. If there's one thing to look at in this game that can maybe bring the Cowboys into it, is that the offensive line doesn't play like what you expect because they're not healthy.
John, it's Dallas week. We're all miraculously healed when it comes to Dallas week, okay? Every last one of us. I don't care what ailment you got. When it comes to Dallas week, you're healed 100%.
Yeah. And that's why they're all playing, Seth. I asked Nick Sirianni. Jordan Mailata can't raise his arm above his shoulder length. Now, you don't have to do that, but it's nice to have that range of motion as an offensive lineman. Kelsey and Seumalo, they have their ankles, the opposite ankles taped up. It's almost comical to see them line up each other because the opposite ankle on each player is just ballooned up with all this tape and bandage, trying to get through it. And we've seen Landon Dickerson week to week. Again, he let Suo Pet play more against the Arizona Cardinals than Landon Dickerson. So this has been an ongoing issue. They're all going to be out there. I said it's not who starts, it's who finishes on the offensive line for the Eagles.
Absolutely. John, before we let you go, what is your final prediction for Eagles-Cowboys?
I think the Eagles are the better team. I think they're the better team if Dak Prescott's here, so they're certainly the better team with Cooper Rush. I don't think the Cowboys can score a ton of points against this Eagles defense. And I think ultimately the Eagles will wear down, as they usually do, the opposition and start scoring some points. So 27-17, somewhere in that range, Eagles win.
It ends with a Philadelphia Eagles victory, so that makes us all happy. John McMullen, our NFL insider, JAKIB Media YouTube channel as well. John, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. John McMullen joining us right there. I like that. Just to drink some of that magic water, and all of a sudden you're healed.
Well, you better be healed for this game because there's a lot on the line. And more than just winning and losing, it's also positioning for the playoffs. It's still early in the season, but every game counts when it comes to head-to-head competition. I find it interesting that DeMarcus Lawrence has been doing all this talking and how soon he forgets that in 14 games against the Philadelphia Eagles, he only has 3 quarterback sacks. Lane Johnson has basically owned him over 14 games. But I will say this also. I don't think DeMarcus Lawrence has played with a defensive unit with this much talent on it in his career.
That's what it certainly seems like. Seth, we're going to get your response to that coming up in just a second when we return in our final segment here of the JAKIB Media pregame show.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.